hmm I think it's unique mainly because I'm doing all of this myself. I don't have an entourage. I don't have a separate producer. I don't have an engineer. It's just me in there. And, there's no chance for on-the-spot feedback about what you're doing. I have people I can take my music to, and they'll let me know whether, something's good, something's bad, this needs, more low, this needs more high. Namely, my brother Drew. I grew up with him, and he has always been my most honest sounding board. Like, he's not afraid to tell me when something sucks, or when, he knows I can do better, or, whatever. But I think that the fact that this record is mainly about, a lonely guy, and the fact that I'm doing it completely myself, it kind of speaks volumes about the process. 'Cause you don't know how much that I love you. You don't know how much that I miss you. All of this time, you should have been mine. Well, I just don't know what to do. Yeah, I should probably qualify that. It's my first complete song. I've been writing songs, or trying to, I should say, since I was like 8 or 10 years old. And, you have the mind of a child. You can't really, articulate your emotions, and have it have, rhythm and rhyme and have it sound good and all of that. So this one was about my very first teenage breakup. And it's obviously very melodramatic, as teenage breakups generally are. But that song, it's been laying around for 23 years. Wow. Yeah, 23 years. Yeah, I have it right here. There it is. The opening bar of the intro. My wife says that I should put it on my back and have the entire score notated on my back, but I was lucky I got through that one, because I'm a real chicken and I have like zero pain tolerance, so it was amazing I got through that. No, not really for me. There's that one, by the way. I have been obsessing about this band since I was old enough to know what music was, and all throughout my life, I was really a picked on kid, and I was bullied day after day in the schoolyard, and I would come home and put on their records and hear things like, she doesn't like the tough guys, they think they can do anything they please, and I used to be lonely till I learned about living alone, and you keep pushing on and all that, and it was always very, very motivational for me. It was like, wow, somebody gets it, not only that, but I think that Kevin Cronin is perhaps the greatest pop songwriter of our recent generation. When I mean pop rock. So, but yeah. I never knew you at all. I was the spring, you were the fall. If only I'd known how to bottle the time as it came to me. There is no way you could be all that I made you out to be. Oh, and now it's Well, losing a parent is not easy for anybody, but I was 16 when my father died, so more than just losing him, which was hard enough. He had a heart attack on my 16th birthday, actually. But, losing him was actually the easy part. I think what was really difficult was coming to grips with who he actually was. it was hard to learn about all that stuff. You have, when you're a kid, your parents have this automatically installed, superhero status. Like, they can't do anything wrong, and, but they're human, just like the rest of us. And when you grow up and you find out, wow, they really weren't who you thought they were, it can be a real drag, especially if they're not with us anymore.
I'm waiting for you to make up your mind. I'm taking a hit, you're taking your time. Well, what's it gonna be, baby? Are you in or are you out? Talk about love and what it all means.
Where the Rubber Meets the Road is pretty much a marital argument set to music. A typical marital fight. I think that anybody who has been married, and if they're being honest with themselves and others, can definitely relate to this song. In the moment, tempers are flaring, you're pissed off. You can't really think of the good in that person. You're just full of rage and whatever you have inside you that's negative. And so you just kind of let it fly. Later everything calms down and, you realize, well, yeah, that was kind of stupid. But in the moment, you just vent. You throw it out there, even if it is ridiculously hurtful. But I think it's healthy. At least writing the song about it was.
Forever, there's one thing we can do. Meet me under the moon, between the midnight starlight and the warming light of noon. You don't have to worry, you have no need to fear. If you look up to
Under the Moon is a song about a long-distance romance that I had. Coming off the heels of my first marriage was the internet was just gathering steam, and I would go into chat rooms and talk to people because I'm a social being, very much so, and I fell in love with words on a screen, and she was in Canada, I was in Missouri, and it was a drag. We didn't get to see each other so much. She would come down here, I would go up there. So we had our moments, and it was great. It was a fantastic love affair. But in the end, the strain of that thing, you just can't really sustain it. But the song is the sentiment in that is kind of that of somewhere out there. If we feel like we're far apart, we're sharing the same atmosphere, we're sharing the same, celestial bodies, all of that. All we have to do is, meet and hook up and look up at the same sky, and, we'll feel closer together. But, of course, that wasn't enough, and it ended quite badly for me. No, actually, on New Year's Eve of that year, 02, going into 03. So the strain of it was just way too much. Nothing was going right, and the farther apart we drifted, I got a little more desperate. In the end, I got extremely controlling. It was totally my fault, and she, rightly so, said, "See you later. I'm done with this. I can't deal with it anymore." It was just too much negative. Well, on that date is specific because when I wrote the song, I wrote the date on the top of it. I wasn't necessarily thinking that would be the title of it, but I wrote that date at the top of the piece of paper. I was actually homeless at the time, and I was staying in this house that the church I was going to let me borrow. You can crash here, and, with the provision that I knew that it was literally going to be torn down in the next month. So I knew I had a month in this house, and it was February, and it was cold, and the walls were thin, and I mean, I could feel every bit of February in that house, and knowing I was pretty much going to end up back out on the streets after it was over. So I had pretty much had it with life at that point, and oh yeah, I was ready to commit suicide. I had a razor blade. I had a nice warm bath. I was getting ready to do it, man. And right before I stepped into the bath, I got a knock at the door, and it was a very good friend of mine. Just came to visit, came to check on me, and we talked for a couple of minutes, and I just ended up sobbing. I mean, I was just beside myself for a couple of hours, actually. And when he left, I had this phrase in my head, this is a cold world since you're gone. And the song pretty much wrote itself, like within 10 minutes. It was just pure raw emotion. I always say that song saved my life, so.
That leaves me so lost will somehow keep you warm, 'cause this is a cold world since you've been gone. I can't find a reason for my life to roll on.
Well, I had met my second wife shortly after, what I refer to as the Canadian tragedy. At the time, she was pretty much everything I needed her to be, when I needed her to be it. And, I arrived in town in Springfield, Missouri, from St. Louis without a dime in my pocket. My clothes were dirty. I was dirty. I was depressed. I was hurt. And, she knew all of that. And, her main goal was to get me cleaned up and then to get me feeling better about myself, which, she did in short order. But I was hurt, obviously, and she let me be hurt. So I kind of felt like I'd hit the lottery as far as, women. I have ADHD, and it's really hard for people to be patient with us because, there's so many things going around in our head at one time. It's hard for us to calm down, and it's hard for us to think before we speak, and, all of that. So, she was extremely patient with me throughout all of that. And so I just felt always like, what is this girl doing with me? I'm, some bum that I got, pulled out of the gutter, and but she didn't see any of that. She kind of saw me for who I really was, before things went tragic on me. And so it was very, very serendipitous. So the whole time, that's all I kept thinking was, man, this girl's out of my league, man. And, those thoughts, they plague me still, really. But it's better. It's easier as we go along after 10 years now.
I may be sweet enough to make you feel important. I may be strong enough to hold you when you cry. May be smart enough to know just why the sky is blue. But in spite of all my dreams, to me it always seems, no matter what I say or what I do.
Well, in any relationship, as you grow and change, the honeymoon ends relatively quick. You have the thrill of being together. You have the, can't go another minute without being with them. And, after you get married, you kind of settle into this, this plateau, Some people would call it a dip. Other people would call it a rut. But, routine becomes king, and, you don't necessarily have all of the fireworks. So, but anything but ordinary it was my way of, hearing her saying, man, everything is so boring, and, all we've got is, we've got our nights watching TV, and we have our routines and all of this, and, that song was my answer. It was, yeah, we may be routine, but, we have everything that we need, because we relate to each other. We're comfortable. We're, all of the great things that come with being married. So Anything But Ordinary is actually the title because it's more succinctly about my life. Anything But Ordinary is probably what everybody would use to describe me if they knew me. So, yeah, go on out and check it out.
Cause we're anything but ordinary. Doubt just isn't necessary. A love like yours and mine, we don't find every day. We laugh and love and feel together. Through it all, we're tough as leather. We'll grow old just doing what we